everybody. How is everyone today on this fine Wednesday? A little dreary out. I kind of like days like today, though. It's not cold, it's just overcast and calm. Especially going to work, you know. I don't mind going to work in a day like today. But that's neither here nor there, because today we're going to talk about work a little bit. But not just work, everything, life in general. We're going to talk about procrastination. The true procrastination, not that crap I talked about before yesterday. I don't even know what that was. I apologize again for that blasphemous episode. Blasphemous, of course, being the wrong word, but used in a sense of irony here today. So, you're at work, and you're tasked with making sure that X, Y, and Z always get done. Okay, great, no problem. You got that covered, you know how to do that. Well, seems to me that part of a job that is above and beyond a button pusher, a gear turner, that kind of thing, is to take on certain projects and responsibilities in addition to your standard responsibilities. Because as you develop techniques and are given tools, your daily responsibilities tend to become easier to manage. You're better at it. You have more available resources, mental as well as physical. So these new projects that come in tend to take up a little bit of time, and then you've got to squeeze it in those windows of time that you have throughout the day. So it can happen that the priorities of the day, if they get overwhelming, if an emergency erupts or somebody calls in sick, whatever it may be, you have to work on project D, but A, B, and C are taking up the full 8 or 9 hours of your day. You don't have time to work on D, and it's reasonable. Now, the real question is D. What kind of priority are we talking about here with D? And we need to know, A, when does it need to get done? So having a deadline on it is very helpful. But what happens when people are always putting artificial deadlines on things? Or what happens if D doesn't have a deadline? It's just the thing you need to get done. At what point are you going to make D happen? And is going above and beyond, going that extra mile, helping to get D done? Is that boosting your career? Or is that just lining the pockets of the owners with you getting no reward? Kind of hard to say. You got to look at your own individual situation. But let's go ahead and look at that against life in general. Now, you've got to take care of responsibilities A, B, C at home. But what if you also need to take care of D or E or F? Now, there needs to be a balance struck here, because let's look at the two ends of the spectrum. Number one, somebody who never gets anything done. They never bother to even get the house clean. They never feel like they have time to volunteer or help out in the community. They don't want to do anything above and beyond, like exercise or go to church or anything along those lines. All they want to do is get through the day. And then when they're done with their day, could be any time, then they're just going to do nothing with the rest of their evening. They're going to read a book, or they're going to read a magazine, watch TV, fall asleep, play mindless video games. The striving, then, to get through that ABC and get into the DEF is very helpful. And then the DEF can be stuff that they're feathers and caps, stuff you're going to hold on to forever, stuff that no one can take away from you. They could be, your mark upon the world. It's almost like a business making a profit. I was always taught to think of a business making a profit as a machine that puts things on a conveyor belt. And at the end of the conveyor belt, the things fall down into a hole in the ground. The hole in the ground eventually gets filled up with those things. And then once that hole is filled, anything that is on top of that hole, that's what you get to keep. So your job is to build a machine, A, that spits out items as fast as possible. And to B, make sure that hole is as shallow as possible. And then C, make sure the machine runs long enough that you get to keep lots of those things. If it only just fills up the hole, you're maintaining, not good enough. If it doesn't even fill up the hole, now you're going into debt. You're running a negative balance sheet for the day. Well, life can kind of be the same. You've got to get through ABC. Let's get through that as quick as possible. Let's work on getting that done as quickly as possible. Let's work on developing techniques so that the pitfalls that make it take super duper long slow down or minimized. And you know what? That's really your first responsibility. That's your first D, is to develop tools. You know, you're not just trying to get through the day. You're trying to get through the year. You're trying to get through the decade. So how can we do that as efficiently as possible? A big part of it is going to be, let's take some time to develop tools to make my ABC tasks better. Let me develop those tools. And that's kind of why you get more and more piled on. So some people might look at that as a negative. But I wouldn't. I would say, okay, so now that that's done, we don't have to do that anymore. Now what can I do? Some people will think, well, then now that's putting me out of a job. No, it's freeing your time up to do bigger and badder things. And the more free that we can make you, the more efficient we can be, the more we can get done, the faster that machine will run. And that is a double-edged sword because, yeah, you can look at the need for cashier jobs disappearing because we got computers doing a lot of that work now. Okay, so yes, you are going to need to be more educated. But there's a lot more to do now that is bigger and badder than cashier jobs. That's an argument for another episode. Right now what I'm talking about is how do you get to that D time? All right, so here's the real meat of it. Excuse me. The real meat of it is that you've got to make time to get those D's done. If that means coming early or staying late, that can happen. But better would it be to simply block off the appropriate amount of time at some point during the week and make sure that it happens. Now, you got to go a little above and beyond to make that happen. What that could mean is that normally if you just do your ABCs, you're very relaxed throughout the day. You take your time with a cup of coffee, you take an extended lunch, you go out for a little stroll in the afternoon, you get to leave, right on time. You get to spend some time chit-chatting with folks. Great, that's great. There should be days like that, I think, in the office where it's not super duper hustle bustle, move. But if you block out a couple hours in the morning and take that couple hours and work on that thing that needs to get done, and then when those hours are done, turn around and look at, now what are the things that I have to do for ABC? My goodness, it's overwhelming. I've got a lot to do. And then just boom, bang it out. Gotta do this, gotta do this, gotta do this, gotta do this. The trick is, how do you make sure that those things that get piled up aren't super critical? How do you make sure that something that didn't come in at 10 o'clock that needs to get done at 11 when you're on your between 10 and noon time doing D projects? Because you don't want your boss, supervisor, someone who needs you to come in and say, hey man, what about this that just came in that needs your attention immediately? What are you working on? Well, I'm working on this thing that doesn't matter at all. Well, why aren't you working on this? Because if I don't work on this, it's never going to get done. This is going to get done by the end of the day, no doubt. This is never going to get done. So to avoid procrastinating, you got to break that window of time out, but you've got to backstop it with emergency stuff. That could be, that can be a 15-minute quick look at an email every 15 minutes. Deek, alarm goes off. All right, let's look. No emergencies. Okay, moving on. But that means you got to resist the temptation to say, oh, well, this one's quick. I'm going to knock that out. And this one's kind of important. I'll take care of that. Or this one's fun. I've been waiting on this one. That's going to prevent D from ever getting done. But then in addition to that, you could be in a situation where you're just waiting for all the stars to align for D to get done. So to get the stars to align, sometimes that makes sense. Sometimes it's a project that really doesn't matter unless 1, 2, 3, criteria 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all in alignment. Okay, so we got these 4 criteria. Boom, now it's go time for this project. Okay, so that's on your list. Problem there is you're going to forget about it. So if that's really what you're waiting on, you got to keep talking about it. For example, I am trying desperately to get this. It's a training voice file, audio file, kind of like a podcast. I'm trying desperately to get this thing beefed up. Right now, it's only 3 or 4 minutes long. I need real, actual examples of stuff happening. So I'm asking everyone in the office, I need examples of this stuff happening. Please keep your ears open for this. And one person has responded to me out of 30, 40 people who could respond. And she's responded to me once. I need to keep on it. I need to keep asking. I need to keep looking and experiencing and waiting and listening and looking for these things to happen. Because these things, if I can cite examples of these things happening and actually get real recordings from these things going on, people are going to be able to understand. But I'm not getting the responses. So that is a stars align project for me. Once I have the source material, which the stars need to align before I can get it. Once I have the source material, I'll be able to move on. I'll be able to get it done. I don't know what's going on there. Somebody's honking at somebody. I don't know what. So now that the source material, once I get the source material, I'll be in much better shape. So that's a stars align project. But what you don't want to do is say, oh, I just need to wait for that perfect day when everything's all in perfect place to get this thing done. If it's A, something that's even remotely time sensitive because the stars are never going to align, or B, if having the stars align isn't actually going to really help you. If having the stars align mean that this is something that you can have done in an hour, but if the stars aren't aligned, it's going to take you 15 hours, then yeah, you probably better wait for the stars to align. If it's not super duper important that this get done, if it's just something that would be really awesome, then yeah, wait for the stars to align. That much I understand. I agree with. But if you're in this situation where it's important that this happen, and having the stars align is really only going to help you by about an hour, or say 20, 30, 40, even 50%, it's just not worth it waiting for the stars to align. Because you know how often the stars align? About once a year. But you know what typically happens when the stars align? Something lights on fire. Hey, come on, guys, check it out. There's a solar eclipse going on right now. But there are people trapped in this burning building. That's kind of what it feels like. So, to procrastinate, to avoid procrastination, you've got to analyze how you can get those things done. It's just a matter of making it happen. Now, you have to decide for your career, because you can always go in early, right? Not always, some places you can't, but you got to decide on your career how you're going to get these things done. You also want to talk to people. Say, hey, by the way, I'm trying to get this thing done this week. You know, just letting you know. Maybe you can give me a hand here or there. Ask them to just do very simple, small tasks. If you can ask 4 coworkers to do 4 very small, mundane things for you, you know, maybe they just keep an eye on email for a minute, or if they can run a meeting that takes half an hour, that buys you half an hour. And any little thing that you can do to free up a little bit of time for you is going to make a huge difference as well. This is all very vague understanding, but it's so nebulous because this stuff can apply, I think, to any industry. In any event, I want to hear about you. You know, what are your issues? What are your challenges? And is it worth it to you to really go the extra mile to get that D stuff done? I think it is, within reason. So I'm actually in here early today because there's a few D things that I'm going to work on right now. And we're going to do really, really well. And